The new character release strategy is still a hot topic within the Marvel Strike Force community, and I am going to guess that it is only going to get worse. I want to talk to you guys about this, possibly go over some of the reasons why this is going on, and if you want to know those things, then join me in this video. What's going on, everyone? I'm BPG and welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time here, I make at least 2 Marvel Strike Force videos every single week, usually based around the events within the game. However, sometimes I do get to sprinkle in other videos just like this one here. So if you find the content in this video helpful, please do consider giving it a like, subscribe to the channel and ring that notification bell so you don't miss any other BPG uploads. And if you're new around here or not, why not stick a comment down below? I love to speak to each and every one of you, and we have an amazing community here over on the BPG channel. Now, I want to preface this with some of these opinions from myself might not be the most popular, but they are based on some facts and figures that I have found for myself within the game, within my experience. So this is a little bit of a broader spectrum as to why we have the new character release strategy that we currently have. So what are we going to cover in this video? Well, the first thing we need to cover is what is Marvel Strike Force. This might seem very, very simple, but to overall summarize what it is, we need to go over what Marvel Strike Force is as a game. We need to break down what the new character release method actually is and how long it's been going on for. We also need to speak about the revenue for Marvel Strike Force and where does it come from. And the last thing I'm going to attempt to explain is why I think that we have this new character release strategy. So what is Marvel Strike Force? Well, at its core, Marvel Strike Force is a hero collector game. It is also a turn-based RPG game, a bit like Final Fantasy. It has a huge amount of resource management in it. Now, anyone who tells you anything different is completely wrong. This game is basically a resource management game wrapped up in a hero collector. So it's going to appeal to those people that like to collect the heroes, especially Marvel heroes. But ultimately, it is how well you can manage your resources, and those who manage their resources get on best in this game. There are 2 ways of managing your resources. If you're free to play, obviously you will have to manage what resources you get coming into the account free to play. However, you can spend to get more resources, and this leads to what they call these category of games, which are called freemium games. So they are free to play, but they are also, there is a premium price attached to them if you want to shortcut things like the resource management side of things, like the timescales to get characters to max stars or to unlock characters. All of those things come under the freemium title. So Marvel Strike Force is not a subscription-based game. It is what they call a freemium model. So it runs off of that model. Now, what do I mean by a subscription-based model? Well, the only thing I can compare it to that I've played in my life where it is a subscription-based model was World of Warcraft. And to give you guys a bit of background, I played World of Warcraft Vanilla between 2004 and which was its inception, and 2006, which was right up to the Burning Crusade and the birth of my first child. So during that time, World of Warcraft peaked at 6 million players. That is an insane amount of players when you think about it. And I believe the player base is even bigger nowadays than it was back then. However, as a player, you had to pay £30 or $50 in American for the game itself. I remember quite vividly going to my local game, which was the retail store, and purchasing my copy of World of Warcraft. And then each player also paid a £10 per month subscription to play the game. So you could go out, you could pay £30, buy the game, but unless you paid Blizzard that £10 a month subscription, or $15 it was in the US, you could not play the game. You literally had a worthless game in your hands. Now, the game itself has gone up in price now. I believe it is now roughly £40 to buy the game itself. However, the subscription is still the same. And based on that total number of players, those 6 million players, the total revenue yearly that World of Warcraft was bringing in was £240 million. That is a staggering amount of money on a yearly basis. And I think everyone thinks, whoa, obviously, you know, MSF must be like this, surely. Not at all. And this brings us to what the new release strategy is. So remember that subscription based, remember that £240 million. Remember those figures, that £10 a month with the £30 buy-in for the game. So what is Scopely's new release strategy, and when did it start? Well, it actually started being introduced on the 26th of June 2024, which was when we had the brand new Illuminati team. Now, luckily, we had 3 reworked characters with this team. It was the first time they have ever done, certainly in my knowledge, a 6-person team. And this new release strategy was actually released under a guise of stargating for the unlock of a new epic character, Captain Britain. Now, I don't believe that actually it was about stargating the unlock of Captain Britain. I think this was their first trial run at how their new release strategy that they were going to go for would do. And this continued with the Annihilators in August 2024. Finally, they unveiled their plans. They were officially unveiled on the 5th of September 2024 when they did the Path to Orcus blog and then the final new character release strategy. And just in case you guys didn't know about this, this is the blog in question, the future of character release events. They basically went into this saying that Path 1 would be the Path 2 events. They're phase 1. It's going to be using orbs, engaging in the game throughout the entire week. And not just engaging in the game, but if you want to get it any quicker, you're going to have to engage with your wallet. You can consider this a release event for new characters. However, this may not always come in the shape of the milestones you are familiar with. Each Path 2 event releases a character you obtain through daily engagement in various game modes, and occasionally some surprises. Players earn new character shards from these throughout phase 1, which will add up to unlocking the new character during phase 1 or phase 2. We want phase 1 to feel like you're continually making progress towards unlocking the new characters. Phase 2 is the power-up opportunities. So this is composed of various power-up moments. These opportunities may overlap with phase 1 or follow the conclusion of phase 1 to unlocking a character. Shards for the characters of the new team will still be made available in other ways, whether through events, a battle pass, strike pass, a milestone, etc. Details will vary, so keep an eye on the official blogs for info. Phase 2 is a great way to finish unlocking the character or powering one up further. Additional character accessibility, they've said this. In addition to the phase 1 and phase 2 efforts, will ensure at least one character within 30 days after the character's initial launch will be made even more accessible through engagement. For now, this will likely come in the form of character shards in a milestone. However, we will continue to experiment and find new, fun and engaging ways to deliver these shards. So that's basically saying within 30 days, one character from the team, which at the moment we think is going to be the first character in the team because we've had Guardian and Sentinel, both of which who have had events, milestone events, to earn their shards and get their unlock quite soon after their phase 1 events, or even during their phase 1 events. So let's talk about the 1.5% and the 0.15%. And I want to give a big shout out here to Mobile Gamer. He released a video about a year ago, which I don't know whether he remembers he released or no. But there was an article from back in 2014, so 10 years ago. And that article was on Forbes, and there was also an article on IGN. And in my opinion, the IGN article was better than the Forbes one, but the Forbes one is what he used. And it was to do with this 1.5% and the 0.15%. But mostly they went on the Forbes article, they went on about the 0.15%. And what does that mean? It might sound all gobbledygook to you, but here we go. So in 2014, the mobile analytics firm Swerve released a report. Now, what Swerve did was they surveyed 1 million mobile game, freemium mobile game players. And they basically surveyed them on their spending habits. And what they found from that survey, those 1 million players, what they found was that 1.5% of the player base made up 100% of the revenue that was spent in mobile games. So 1.5% of the players that they surveyed were making up 100% of the revenue that was going to be made on those games. And 10% of those players, or 0.15% of the player base, which is the Krakens as we would call them in the game, make up 50% of the game's entire revenue. So when you have these freemium games, a very, very minute number of players in a percentage are actually spending money on the game, and an even smaller percentage of those players are the ones who make up the biggest part of the revenue. So what does this mean for Marvel Strike Force? Well, the last leaderboard that we were able to look at that finished, and we had someone from the community who finished right at the bottom. They deliberately did bad in the event so we could see. We had 322,441 engaged players. Now, why do I say engaged players? Because you'll see later on in the video that there are certainly more than that number downloading the game. This is the players engaged within this event. Some of those downloads would have picked it up, played the game to a certain point and possibly logged off and gone forever. Some of those players, you know, some of them might be players who have played for a long time and dropped off. But we know that the active community is about 322,000 players. And this means that 1.5% of that player base would be 4,837 players. Now we can actually test this because we have a leaderboard going on right now, and it's a leaderboard that actually is quite good because it has a limited number of ways of actually scoring points. And where I am at the moment, I'm actually pretty much maxed out on the points that I can score as a free-to-play player. So let's go and take a look at that a second. So first off, we will take a look at the web milestone for the event. Now this web milestone is called Mutant Rebellion. And in this event, there are a few ways of scoring points, but for the free-to-play community like myself, the main way of scoring points is raiding with Orcus in playing a raid battle with Orcus members, and then collecting these Revolution Orb fragments. Now, as you can see here, I have already completed all the milestones in this web milestone that is going to give me Revolution Orb fragments. So I have no way of scoring any more points for this event from this web milestone. Everything else on top of the milestone 8 was actually just extra bunts, bit more gold, bit more points towards the month-long event milestone, but that is it, not towards the week-long event milestone. And now we'll go into game, and here you can see I've scored my 10,000 points, which is to play the one raid battle with the Orcus team. The rest of these points are all what we would call in the from us guys who do the events, these are the whale stones or the spender milestones. So these are, or not spender milestones, but these are the spender point inputs. So this is like battling in raids with Sentinel at 5 yellow stars. Now, not every free-to-play player is going to have that. 6 yellow stars and 7 yellow stars is definitely off the table for a free-to-play player. Again, Nimrod at 5 yellow stars. Very unlikely that a free-to-play player is going to have that. Same with the 6 and 7 yellow stars. And a Mega Sentinel, who only came out last Friday. She also 5 yellow stars, 6 yellow stars, 7 yellow stars. That is nigh on impossible for a free-to-play player to get. So all of those would be, anyone who scored those points have probably spent money on the game. Now here's the top 100 players. Right here, you can see them all. Now, if we find me, I am currently sat at 3,448th place. I've got a couple of more free claims to be able to claim from the website, but apart from that, that will pretty much be my lot for this event. So I will sit probably around here, probably drop a little bit because we have diamonds for the newest character, Omega Sentinel, and quite a lot of stuff that people might want. So this leaderboard, you know, I'll probably get pushed down a little bit come the end once people see how much they've got to spend. But you can pretty much see that I said 4,000 players. I'm in the top 3,500 players. And, you know, like I said, I reckon I will end up in between the top 4,000 to 5,000 by the end of this event in 4 days' time. So that kind of gives that 1.5% of the player base, that 4,837, seeing that leaderboard there and where I am as a free-to-play player, kind of gives it some reality as to what I'm talking about. If we were going to go down the subscription route and the World of Warcraft route, let's say, 322,441 players would need to spend £150 per year to equal the World of Warcraft subscription model. That is a grand total of £48 million per year, but we don't have that subscription model in Marvel Strike Force, and so that level of money needs to come from those 1.5% of players. It's hard to explain this, but it's insane. £48 million needs to come from just under 5,000 players. And to put that into real-time, real-time money, that means that each player, if all the active players were to spend on the game, each player would need to spend £9,673 per year. Those top 5,000 players, but that obviously doesn't happen. Not all of those players in the top 5,000 spend that £9,500 a year on the game. So what about the Krakens? Well, as I said earlier, according to the data that Swerve took, Krakens make up 50% of the revenue in the game, which means they're basically contributing 24 million, or would need to contribute £24 million per year. That's about £36,000 per year per Kraken, or just over £3,000 per month. Now, Dorky Dad recently did a interview with Sevi. I'm going to leave a link to that down below because I think it was very, very eye-opening. And in there, Sevi admitted herself that she would spend between $2,000 and $5,000 every single month on the game. It's an eye-watering amount of money, but as you can see, that gives even more preface to what they need to spend and what they are spending. But that would also mean that the rest of the 50%, which is made up by the other 1.35% of the player base, would need to spend roughly £5,000 £8,000 a year, or £463 per month. So when you get content creators saying that £80 a month or $80 a month is enough to run the game, I would agree with you. It would be if every single player did this, but not every single player does buy the battle pass. And I know even more of them, even less of them are starting to buy the battle passes now since this new character release strategy. But this is the thing. Realistically, we need the Krakens, we need the bigger spenders, the people who are able to drop this sort of money on the game to keep it going, because it doesn't keep going if you just have people who are free to play playing this game. So why do I think they have done this new character release strategy? Quite simply, I believe revenue is down. And why is revenue down? Well, you've had players like Tadano Mac, which some of you might not know, but he was a prolific Kraken. He was, one of the first through Dark Dimension 5, I believe it was, and Dark Dimension 4. So he was, he had spent a lot of money on the game, and he decided to quit because of some things that had happened within with Scopely. And that is a big kick, because you've then got to get someone to come up. You've either got to get a new person in that's going to spend that type of money to keep the revenue at the same, or someone from that group of Krakens has got to step up and spend that money. And that probably hasn't happened. You've also had the likes of Beta Ray Bill. Now, again, another, I don't know how much these guys spend, in all honesty. And I wouldn't want to ask them. That's their personal business. But they were known as the Krakens. You would always see them on the leaderboards of events. And so they would have to be spending some form of money to get into that top 100 leaderboard in the event. So when revenue's down, anyone that knows anything about business knows there's effectively 3 ways to increase your revenue, especially if you are in the business where you are selling product, which effectively Marvel Strike Force does. Your number 1 way is to try and find new customers. Now, what has Scopely done to do this? Well, they completely revamped the new player experience. And by doing that, they have made the game a lot more of a good place in the early new game, which is bringing in a lot of new customers. And we can see this, look. So here we go. So this is a website called Sensor Tower. You guys can go and have a look at this if you want as well. What is this? This is an analytics website. These guys track the spend going through each of the stores. So the Play Store and the Apple Store, they track each of all the revenue that goes through that. So every time you buy something in game, that is being tracked by both Google and Apple, as well as the downloads and everything like that. They've got all this data. So here we have the Google Play data. So this is on all your Android phones. 800,000 downloads in the last month, 3 million worldwide revenue, and the top countries downloading the game is India, the US, and Brazil, and that's just on the Android sort of market function, and that would include emulators as well. So anyone that plays on an emulator that then spends, that all goes through the Google Play Store as well. You then have the Apple Store, the App Store. Smaller amount of downloads, only 200k downloads from Apple, but a much higher revenue at 4 million. Now, if we were to take those two, the average revenue per download for this over the two platforms is £23.75 per download, or $23.75 per download, but that's a roughly £23.75 on today's sort of exchange rate. Not a huge amount of money per game, especially when you consider that, let's say, if you were to go out and buy a brand new game from, and I know this is monthly, but you know, a lot of games that you could buy for the PlayStation or the Xbox or whatever, you know, they are a premium game. You know, you're looking at 50, 60 pounds per game. So if you were to equate that to game sales, you know, that is a relatively small amount. And certainly if you look at it from an Android point of view, where you've got these 800,000 downloads and the 3 million revenue, that actually equates to £3.75 per download. That is a very, very cheap game. You know, cheaper than most things you can find on Steam even. So we can see here, revenue, about 7 million. Now, the revenue that isn't there, that I cannot account for, is what goes through the web store for Marvel Strike Force. I would have to guess maybe another couple of million through there. So overall, let's benefit of the doubt, let's say it was £10 million per month. That would give you, you know, basically $120 million per year. Again, sounds like a lot, but when you've got all these people downloading and maybe not staying with the game, or maybe some of them are, you know, that is a big number. Remember, right from the start, 6 million players bought in £240 million for World of Warcraft. So it's big business. And you've got to remember, World of Warcraft wouldn't have had the licensing like Marvel Strike Force does. Marvel Strike Force will have to pay a license fee to Disney every single year or month, or whatever the period of the license is, to be able to keep using the Marvel characters within the game. But we can see there that downloads are still very high. So finding new customers, they have certainly done that with the new player experience. The second way to increase revenue is to upsell current customers. Now, I believe this is the stage that they are at the moment. I believe they have tried the new customer route and it possibly hasn't gone as well as what they would have thought. So now we're on to upselling our current customers. And how are we doing that? Well, we're restricting the amount of shards that we're giving away to the players, in the hopes that they will break and either, for some of us free-to-play players, use our power cores, which might make us inefficient in other things, or that we'll put our hands in our pockets and buy characters. And the third way of cutting, you know, of bringing your revenue back into line is to cut back on resources. Now, they've already done that to a degree through COVID, because although they have an office, a lot of the people who work on this game work from home. So that is a massive cut in resources in reality, you know, keeping a building going, keeping everyone in that building, that all adds in costs. So to keep a team like the Marvel Strike Force team going from home is obviously a lot cheaper. There are other things I have heard on the grapevine that they are cutting back on, or that they have cut back on, which I believe Boylon is going to have a video out today as well. So check out his channel and see all about that. But basically, cutting back on resources is another way you can try and bring your revenue back into line. And as we said, what have they tried? Well, they've tried this new player experience, but I think it failed. And I want to say this in a positive way. I believe it's been a brilliant thing for the game. It's brought in a lot of new blood, but I believe it has failed because of how they have done it. And I just want to take you over to Reddit a second and just read this post from a month ago. And here we are. So this is the Marvel Strike Force Reddit. And this post was from a month ago, and it's titled "The New Player Experience is Fantastic Right Now." Seriously, a new player starting and playing with a bit of focus is going to devour the early and mid game. Bottleneck resources are plentiful, and there are so many impactful characters and teams to build, so you don't even have to waste time building crap characters. A lot of events, example being the Magneto one, are also free to play / new account friendly. Scopely gets a ton of shit for their business model and decisions, but the new player experience is amazing right now. Source: I created a completely free to play baby account 133 days ago and just unlocked Scroll this morning with minimal daily effort. Now, Scroll is from DD6, which is a decent achievement within 133 days. Someone then asked, can you give an overview on how to get there? I've got a pretty great Hivemind team, but can't seem to crack any of the epic campaigns. I'm fine sinking resources into teams like Out of Time, Extreme X-Men, Pegasus and Hivemind, but most random teams I level up to gear 60, level 60 gear 11, but they get blown over like weaklings. And the original poster put that 75% of his roster is essentially level 1. If he's not using that character for they do nothing with them. That's a very similar strategy to what I use. Plus, because we know what characters we need up to DD7, we can focus on those. Anyway, the main teams I built were Spider Society and Extreme X-Men, except Cyclops to the moon. I did Hivemind to level 7, Voidlight to level 90. I did Pegasus, Rescue to level 95, and Bifrost to 75. Val and Kestrel have gone to 95. So this is very similar to what my experience is with the game as a free-to-play player. I did New Avengers to 80 for Red Hulk, and another unlock that I forget. That unlock would have been Old Man Logan. Not Old Man Logan, sorry. Green Goblin Classic. Old Man Logan to the moon, Black Knight to 90, Dormammu to 95, Eternals to 95. Probably wouldn't do those to 95 now, though. Doc Ock, Omega Red, Black Bolt, Green Goblin Classic to 95 for DD6 Legendary. Horseman to 90 for Apocalypse. And that's about it. If I was starting today, I would skip Eternals for the Annihilators. Yeah, definitely. But I feel most other characters would be solid, except obviously Bifrost and Pegasus. But I did need them to do Incursion 2 for my Alliance, so no regrets. Now, going back to when I first started playing Marvel Strike Force, which is just coming up to the 2-year mark now, just over, I would never have been in the top end raids by 130 odd days. I would never have gotten Super Scroll at 133 days. It was a lot different, you know. Incursion 2 before Orcus came out was the top end raid. It was the highest raid you could do. But yeah, super focused character, and if I didn't have a project character, I would hoard. Pretty much always had something to work on. Someone then added here, when I started 83 days ago, Void Knight and Black Knight were in milestones and calendars. You get all the new useful teams started off. I believe it's changed to add in Alpha Flight now, so don't know what they replaced. Hivemind, Spider Society, Extreme, Out of Time, Cabal, Masters of Evil, Mercs for Money, less Old Man Logan were some of the teams I got. So you can see here, they really improved the new player experience by making the leveling process easier, giving people teams that are meta. Like when I first started playing the game, you never, ever, ever had that. You had to work hard to get those teams. And so I believe, as you can see here, this is someone's actual experience of playing the new player experience. I actually believe that maybe they made the new player experience a bit too good for what they were aiming to do, which is get new players in and get them spending. They're getting new players in because they're giving players all this stuff and there isn't really any bottlenecks, there's nowhere for them to get frustrated. And that's the sales tactic that Scopely use. That's the sales tactic that all these freemium games use. They use this frustration tactic where if you want to progress at a quicker rate, you've got to pay. Well, you don't have to with this, you know? You don't have to when they're giving you the latest teams. And in fact, I believe that there was for the new players, there was a strike pass milestone event that had annihilators in it, which they then pulled because of the kickback from the new character release schedule. The fact that players who were new to the game were actually getting the brand new team before a lot of seasoned players were even able to get their hands on it. So they brought in a lot of new players, as I've said, but they haven't really brought in any new revenue. And this is why they are going to what I would consider phase 2, which is trying to upsell the current players by limiting the number of shards, putting that frustration tactic in and trying to extract money from everyone's back pocket. So there we have it. I know the new character release method is really, really sucky, but you can, if you manage your resources properly, still unlock these characters within a reasonable time period. You are not going to be able to compete with the spenders. They need their advantages, and you can see quite clearly from this video that if it is the top 1.5%, which I believe it is, that are spending on this game, those top 1.5% of players do need that level of benefit. The rest of us who aren't spending on the game, you know, we need to just play against ourselves. You know, we are playing against a big portion of this player base is going to be free to play, and we're going to be playing against people in exactly the same positions. Let me know what you think down below. Don't forget, if you found this video helpful, it has gone on for a little while, please do like the video. It helps massively. And until next time, everyone, stay positive.